Hello. Oh, that's loud. Hello. I'm here to talk about doing service design. And actually, before I start talking about that stuff, I would like to ask you all a question. Can you please raise your hand if you know what service design is? That's about half, 3/4. Okay. And can you please raise your hand if you're working in service design? That's way less. Okay. Okay, some work to do. We got that. I published a book. I run also a software company called More Than Metrics, where we develop software for service design. But actually, what I want to start with, for those quarter of you who don't know yet what service design is, I try to explain and outline what service design is in 5 minutes. So those of you who know that, just bear with me. It's just 5 minutes, right? And I'm totally aware that I'm the only thing between you and lunch. Don't worry there. All right, depending on the books you read or the agency you work with, we like to outline design always as a process with some core activities, nothing new. Research, ideation, prototyping, implementation. I would like to briefly talk you through the different methods and tools we use that when we design a service. So when we use research methods, of course, we use quantitative methods like surveys or any kind of data that we automatically collect, like conversion analysis and so on. But besides the quantitative data, we also collect qualitative data. And I mean, I'm talking to people who will know that, so I can save some time here. We need both. It's never the question either or, we always need both. We use quantitative data to monitor certain KPIs over time, see how it develops, but then we need qualitative data to actually get actionable insights. So when we design a service, the research method might look a little bit different there. What we love to do is we do stuff like contextual interviews, where we go out to where the service actually happens and talk with the users in the situative context of that service. So they can point towards things, they can show us stuff. We like to do non-participant observation, where we don't interfere in the processes, where we sit back a little bit like those old detective movies where the detective is sitting in the lobby of a hotel with a gigantic newspaper and 2 holes in it, right? We observe processes, we observe how people react, we try to find patterns in that. Like the talk we just listened to, we also do the classic ethnographic work, where we use participant observation and we kind of live through a service experience with our customers. But likewise, we also do that with employees. So we do work-alongs. We work together with employees to understand their reality, their processes, their experience. For me, that is one of the most important aspects of service design. And if I look into my work nowadays, I would say I do as much work in customer experience as I do in employee experience. It's absolutely crucial for us. We need to have happy employees to create great customer experience. We use more modern approaches like mobile ethnography and very simple ones like auto-ethnography, just become a customer yourself. And then we collect all these data, these primary data, and we synthesize that, we analyze that, we create key insights, we write jobs to be done, we visualize that, we create personas, journey maps, system maps, and so on. It's really just 5 minutes. When it comes to ideation, we do these workshops things with Post-its and so on, we ideate. That is a part where I lately really get a problem with. And that's just one statement I want to make. I think ideation is highly overrated. If we look now what agencies or even more what consultancies sell, it's very often a workshop format, ideating with Post-it notes. I think ideation is overrated. Ideas are cheap if you invite the right people, if you do your research well. But what is underrated is prototyping. And that is where we really need to put our effort. And a lot of the talks this morning showed that. So whenever we start with something, with an idea, with a prototype, in service design, we love the notion of a shitty first draft. Every draft of whatever you do, the first one is always shitty, and it should be shitty, because it allows us to free from perfection. And I might be a little bit fanatic there, but I think you can't stress out that message early enough to people. So this is my daughter at the age of 4 months. So we wear the same sweater. She got me hating me for that. And actually, the shirt is not accurate. It shouldn't be shitty first draft. It should be shitting first draft. Because that was basically the old thing she did the first month. Anyhow, we go into prototyping. So in prototype, we often talk, again, about journey maps, a different kind of journey maps. We talk about future state journey maps. A journey map is not a prototype. A journey map helps to align a team to make sure that you talk about the same thing. Maybe to identify which part of a service you want to prototype, but it's not a prototype per se. It helps you to get into prototyping. What is prototyping? Stuff like that. Things you can test with users, like a click dummy, a wireframe, physical prototype. That was a prototype of a bus stop in Atlanta that we built out of cardboard in about half an hour. And the great thing is you can put that out on the street and test it with users and bus drivers immediately. A little bit more high fidelity, that's IDEO working with Lufthansa on redesigning the business class. So we run simulation where they did many flights and simulated many flights on the ground, testing the processes there. On a smaller scale, you can do desktop walkthroughs, where you walk through a service just on your desktop using Lego figurines or Playmobil figurines. And of course, you have to develop and prototype your business model all along while you're working on that. The last part is then implementation. You just make it real. And that's a process. And we're listening to many talks like that. And it always stops there. What about implementation? What about actually doing it, getting stuff out? And that's very often where all these processes suck at. They don't tell you how do you actually get it out on the street so that people can use it. You read books, I'm guilty of that myself. Use this process, it will guide you. So we looked at some processes and we looked at how people communicate the real design process. Probably familiar with that one. That's a squiggle from Damien Newman, more than 10 years old now. And should reflect the reality of a design process, right? Loads of iterations in the beginning. Once the concept is clear, you just work it out. So we used our own book. It's a 3-year process of writing that book and tried to visualize that in the same way. And somehow it looked slightly different. Actually got really, really messy and hard in the end. So we tried to come up with a name for that, and we called that the mayhem. So that's the mayhem process. And once we understood that, we visualized other processes, and we looked at our projects that actually got implemented, and we came out with a whole list of potential processes there. I'm just going to highlight a few of them. You might be familiar with the maze. Right? You've somehow stuck in a process, you can't get out of that anymore. I'm still looking for the Autobahn. If any of you ever experienced that, please tell me. It's like start, end, done. If you work in large organizations, you're probably familiar with the black hole. Like everything you do is somehow sucked in and disappears. If you work in rather traditional organizations, probably you're very familiar with the pinball, where you get pinball between stakeholders and somehow you never get down there. So let's look at the difference between consulting and actually doing stuff. When we look at consulting, we enter what we like to call the workshop land. In workshop land, we always say, trust the process. And then we look at how do we actually communicate the processes. Well, it's simple. Design is always a double diamond. You diverge, you converge, you diverge, you converge, you're done. You just go through 2 diamonds. It's not 1, it's not 3, it's 2. Other folks, I don't know who came up with that stupid idea, says it's 4 clear steps. And I said, nah, 4 is not enough. We need 5. 5 phases. 5 is not enough. Design always got 7 stages. Nah, nowadays, there's so many buzzwords out there, 7 stages is not good enough. We actually need to combine all the buzzwords out there into one model to rule them all. We call that the circular science circles, where you can find literally every buzzword on the planet regarding design in one model. I'm not really sure if that really helps us to design something. That helps us as professionals to talk about things, but we know that this is not reality. We don't trust one process. We know that there are some standards we can use and we can reuse. Like Jake was talking this morning, a design sprint can be a great start, but it's the start of a design process. The process itself is much longer. So how do we design this process? And that is actually one step of a design process itself, designing the process. That's not new, we know that. So how does it look like? As a designer, we have a certain skill set, different methods, different tools, things we can use. Out of these activities, for any problem we have, for any project we start, we try to identify what is suitable, what is feasible. But then we live in a world with constraints like budgets. So some of the stuff we would love to use, we can't use because we're not allowed to it, we can't afford it, whatever reason. And at some point we call this process, yeah, that's good enough. We know how it would be really, really cool to do, we know our constraints, that's what we can go to. So the question is, when is a process good enough? And in our book that we co-wrote together with 300 people from the community, we came up with the 12 commandments of how to do service design. I would like to go through all 12 of them. And for a few of them, I have some help from people from the community. The first one is, call it what you like. I'm not a fan of the word service design, because service design consists out of 2 words where people think they know exactly what it means. People hear service and they think, oh, that's how a waiter brings you your coffee. People hear design, they think, oh, that's aesthetics, the design of my new iPhone. Then they put those 2 words together and they think service design. Oh yeah, I know exactly what it means. It's the aesthetics of how a server brings you your coffee. So when I work with our clients, we always use the language they use. Some call it service design, some call it experience design, some call it design thinking, some call it UX design, just don't limit themselves on a screen. So we asked one of our clients who I think had a very smart way of how they call what they're doing. This is Jürgen from Genesis.
At Genesis, we even call it SMART, because by putting the customer in the center, by co-creating experiences with the service design toolkit, we found a smart way to make a significant impact, not just for our customers, but also for our employees and on the business results. So if you're looking to make a difference, it's smart to start.
Just get rid of all the buzzwords and invent a new one. That's it. Just call it whatever you like. I think that's brilliant. Service design is now part of the national high school curricula in Austria. And they did a brilliant trick. They didn't call the subject service design because they were afraid of parents and what they would think about service design. So they gave it a different name. They called it business and service management. Well, everyone needs that, and then there's little asterisks and below says including service design. I think that's brilliant. Number 2, really close to my heart, make shitty first drafts. Don't overplan. Prototype as quickly as possible. Number 3, as a designer, you are a facilitator. And we need to understand that that's a way how we need to work. So we asked a colleague, this is Simon from Oslo, why you are a facilitator.
There's 3 reasons for this. 1, you are inherently user-centric or customer experience-centric in your approach. 2, you integrate different viewpoints and different disciplines. Design has always integrated function, production, and aesthetics. Or in design thinking terms, feasibility, viability, desirability. This makes you good in terms of running teams with multiple viewpoints. And 3, you're very good at visualization. By visualizing what's happening in a meeting, different possibilities, and especially what-if situations, as a designer, you bring the team together and you create a shared ownership of things. So 3 reasons why you should go out as designers and facilitate teams.
Number 4, doing, not talking. And you can really feel the difference if you work with a client or if you work within an organization who has a higher design maturity, who really started embedding service design in their culture. And these are the folks who not talk about ideas or discuss things or talk about what they think the need of a customer is. These are the folks who do stuff. If we don't know it, we go out and go research. If we don't know it, we create a prototype. Prototyping is research of the future. So doing, not talking, for me, is one of the key aspects to see how far an organization actually is in implementing service design. Number 5, yes, but, and yes, and. So it's about diverging and converging. It's never the question either or. We need both at the right time. This is Belina talking about the difference of yes, but, and yes, and. And remember her last sentence.
So yes and is a magical thing which helps people in organizations to consider things that they haven't considered before, either putting ideas together or thinking about resources in a different way, in a new way. It gets you to a new place. Yes, but if used well, is actually useful for understanding certain problems that might be in the field, for understanding constraints or certain criteria that need to be considered as part of the problem. But yes, but if done poorly, shuts down conversation. So be careful when you're using yes, but, not to be a dick. Thanks, bye.
I love that. Number 6, find the right problem before solving it right. Nothing new. But the question is, do different parts of the organization think alike already? So we need to understand the problem. We need to understand the needs of users before we jump into solution space, because we often jump way too early into solutions and then just have solutions for superficial problems, for symptoms, without understanding the root cause. Number 7, prototype in the real world. Don't always prototype in your lab. Go out into the real world. We saw some great examples for that this morning. The more we prototype in the real world, the closer we get into actually doing an implementation. Number 8, don't put all eggs in one basket. This is a very classic saying in management, and it's important for us as designers as well, particularly when we go from ideation to prototyping. Never take just one idea into prototyping, because you will fall in love with this idea. You're going to stick with this idea. Even though you learn it's shitty, you're going to find, through some biases we unfortunately all have, reasons why this prototype is not shitty but actually cool. But if you take a couple of ideas into prototyping, and you prototype it quickly and test different solutions, you have actually variants to choose from. And that helps you into building a more useful idea which ones to take further. Number 9, it's not about tools, it's about changing reality. We all love our journey maps, but do we actually, is that service design? Let's say what Alex has to say.
It's not about the tools, it's about the value that you can deliver, that the tools help you to deliver. It's not about the templates, it's not even about the personas, it's certainly not about the blueprints. It's about the reality that you can change in an organization, inside people, inside a movement. It's about that change. That's the important thing. We are change agents. We are not creators of beautiful tools. Other people can do that. That's fine. But what we are about is making a fundamental difference to the way we live, the way we work, the way we play, the way we get better in hospital, all of those things. It's about the outcome, not the output.
I always like to say, and please excuse my language, I always like to say a customer journey map is not a fucking deliverable. It's not about delivering a beautiful journey map. It's about what you can do with that. It's a tool we use, and tools don't look beautiful. It's like a hammer on a construction site. It needs to work. Number 10, plan for iteration, then adapt. So don't trust organizations if they put out their design process and you have to follow that step by step like a stage gate process. You need to be able to adapt and change these plans. Number 11, zoom in and out. Let's go back to our tool, the journey map. You can compare a journey map to a map in geography. A map in geography, Google Maps, got different zoom levels. You can zoom out to Europe to understand the big picture. You can zoom into Sweden, zoom into Stockholm, and suddenly details arise. If you want to drive from one city to another, you need maps of different zoom levels. So in service design, we constantly switch between these zoom levels. We zoom into the detail, and then we zoom out to understand the bigger picture. The last one, it's all services. Everything is a service. Is that right?
Yes, it's all service. Some anthropologists even describe human society as a total service system. After all, there's nothing produced by humans that can be assessed without service. Try to access an object without the service of craftsmanship. Logistics, marketing, engineering, it's impossible. And this is one of the most exciting aspects of service design. The opportunity to weave a little bit of novelty into the fabric of humanity.
There's even a whole stream in marketing called service dominant logic, where they claim everything is a service. So understand that also products are just avatars for a service. They provide you a certain service. So how can we avoid the bullshit? How can we actually start doing things and maybe also communicate differently about that? Well, it's trivial, but I think people don't want service design. They don't care about service design. They want the problem solved. And yeah, that sounds really stupid. But then we did a little test. I did a little stock image search for service design. And what do you think? What are the photos you find when you search for service design online? Post-its! Of course! Loads of post-its. Sometimes you see even people pointing at post-its. Sometimes you see also workshop situations, like 4 people in front of like a CSI glass, moving empty post-it note. There's not one word written on that. The guy on the right holding a coffee cup in his hand while he's moving an empty post-it, and the lady next to it. Do you want that in your workshop? Holding a coffee cup, being on the phone, laughing. Yes, very engaged, right? Gosh. I think we all need to work on that because we are all guilty of that ourselves. I'm guilty of that, definitely. But we need to change the visual narrative of service design. How do we actually talk about this discipline? What matters to us? And when I take a look at different examples, what matters to us are people. We need to bring back the human-centered design into service design because somehow we got down into tools, methods, and post-its. So if we look at that, like the mobility experience, it's about people buying a car, it's about people in the backstage, mechanics, repairing cars, it's about those who are developing it. It's all about people. If we look at that hospitality experience, it's, of course, the people who make your coffee. It's about the people who make your food. But it's also about the people who clean up your hotel room when you're not there. And it's definitely the folks who clean up tonight after our party. It's all about people. So no matter how you call it, if you call what you're doing service design, UX design, design thinking, experience design, holistic, multi-channel customer experience, what have you thingy, I would like to ask you now again, because I think you all design already services and systems, just on different Zoom levels. And we are all in this game together. Thank you. I'm getting afraid now.
Thank you so much, Mark.
And Mark, it's
And we
time for
actually
you to
want to
take the
ask a
red
few
pill.
questions to you in the sofa.
Yes.
So,
Right here?
yeah, you're
All
welcome.
right.
So in
Hi.
my hand, I hold one pill.
I take the red one, the red one.
So we actually had a small quiz to the audience this morning where we asked them to tell us the job title within their organization.
Yeah.
As you can see over there, the rest of this.
Yeah, I can't. There's some very specialized people out there. Their font is 8 pixels right now.
It's quite small.
But now you talked about this a little. Can we go into depth of what, like having, like there's the one way of going and just everybody makes up their own completely new thing, and then nobody knows what anybody does. But that could be good because then it's your brand. It's part of your brand.
Yeah.
Or we have sort of the confusion of at least the word designer is in there somewhere. What does that do to our own organization as a profession?
So, for me, service design is a team sport. I mean, if you think about who you need to get a service out there, to get it done, design is a part of that. But you need engineers, you need architects, you need IT coders. In research, you might need psychologists, trend researchers, all of that. Designers are facilitators of this process. What designers can be really, really good is getting all these people in one room and work efficiently together.
Yes.
So for me, design is the glue between these disciplines, which some friends of ours, a design agency in Amsterdam, has big on the wall in the office, and I really like that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd like to be the glue.
So now we have all heard that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
But my question is, what eats culture?
I don't think it's like a food chain, right? And there's like, now it's the bigger shark coming, and then there's a bigger shark coming. And
So culture's the alpha.
if you want to nail me down on that, I think yes. Because if you have a bad culture in an organization, what does it mean? It means that your most engaged people, your best people will leave. Or they shut up and just stop caring about it. So if you have a bad culture in the organization, it will ultimately kill what makes the organization, that is the people.
Yes.
And once you lost the main people in your organization, you're doomed to go down a very dark path. So for me, culture, yeah, I don't think there's another big shark behind it. I think
Baby shark.
Thank you so much, Mark, for being here today. And we have some gifts for you
Please
as
stay.
well. And please stay in the sofa.
do I get
All
lunch
this-
here?
If you want to. And beer, we did talk about that as well.
Speaking of which,
Please
all
give
this-
him a warm applause before.
Done.